Hi, still here. Yeah, so as Sebastian alluded to, we're working on making a reputation system on-chain, and in that way, trying to bring a meritocracy on-chain. A little bit about me. I'm working at Hero Launch DAO, together with Lennart up here, and a couple of other guys spread across the world. I also am a data scientist at AnyBlock Analytics, and because I wanted to put three things up here, I have a finance background from Rotterdam School of Management. Yeah, like I was saying at the beginning, DAOs have proliferated recently, and everyone's talking about it. Everyone's trying to bring governance on-chain and agree with everybody all across the world. And all a DAO really is just a worldwide coordination game. And the way to deal with making decisions all across the world is still hotly debated. And we'd like to toss our ring in the field. I hope you can see it, but a couple of governance issues that we identified when we set out with Hero in the summer during the first, or the second, I think, Solana hackathon. Well, the main one, the one that everybody knows about, and I'm sure you guys don't think of it as a problem because you guys are probably the ruling elite in this plutocracy with all your bags. But it leads to inequalities and misaligned incentives. If you have a big bag in multiple protocols, then you can skew the vote in one protocol towards profiting off the other one, of course. And this hurts the small guy, and then it hurts everybody else who's in basically the common interest is hurt, whereas the individual interest gains. Well, this is also the tragedy of the commons, where everybody sets out to maximize their own gains, and as a result, the overall gains go down, and well, the whole system loses out. And we see that in the real world. We see it on-chain. We saw it here, for example, the DeFi Education Fund, where all these uni tokens were sent away and then immediately turned into, well, immediately sold, immediately dumped. Of course, we also have voting inefficiencies on Ethereum and other expensive chains, where small guys aren't voting because it doesn't make any sense to, because they can't afford to. Yeah. Then we would also have elected specialists, for example, here in this DGen Ape organization, where there's a group of 15 individuals deciding about well, governance within the protocol, rather than everybody voting. But this is opaque. It's like politics today. You don't know whether they're going to do what they set out to do. It's not properly on-chain. Yeah, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Yeah. And what this could lead to is career politicians who set out with the intention of remaining in power rather than helping out the whole organization. Another example here is Steemit, which had elected specialists. I don't know if everybody knows about what happened there, but basically Justin Sun bought the illegitimate original stake in Steemit and then tried to take it over and put it on his chain. They blocked the elected officials blocked his stake from voting, so he was from being moved. So his funds were now trapped. So what he did instead is he got his friends at, well, his exchange Poloniex, Huobi, and Binance to come in with all their Steemit tokens. Well, their Steemit tokens, because they were actually somebody else's Steemit tokens. They're just held in custody of the exchanges. And then those were used to vote in individuals that could free up Justin's bag and basically choose basically vote for the things that he wanted to set in motion on Steemit. So what happened instead is most people, well, the good actors, they left and they started Hive. But in the end, it kind of turned out all right. But it shows that if you have a coin in the custody of an exchange, it's not your coin, and they might use it for illicit purposes, such as taking over other, such as pushing in one direction. They have a lot of power, is what I'm saying. Oh, I wanted to show an example of. I can't show it. Oh well, it's okay. I wanted to show TrueFi. TrueFi is a platform that I have a bit of a stake in, where you can vote on non-collateralized loans. And if you vote yes and you're in the majority, you get rewarded with some tokens. So basically, it's incentivized voting. The small guy will have to pay $50 in transaction fees to even send a vote, so it doesn't make sense to. And then they won't get rewarded with much because their stake is so small. That's one of the voting inefficiencies I was talking about. And also something I call bandwagon voting. If you see that a vote is already quite heavily skewed towards a yes vote, there's no reason for you to vote no if you're looking out for your own interests. Because at some point, it'll be too obvious that the vote will not be able to be overturned. And then people aren't voting anymore for the outcome that they think is the best outcome, but instead voting for the outcome that they think will give them the most return, which is not what we're intending, right? Oh. All right, potential solutions will be on-chain delegation, which we discussed a little bit about here, but where you give your vote to someone who's trustworthy. But the issue is it could still be used. Somebody could incentivize you to stake your vote to them, to delegate to them, so that they can make decisions with that. So I don't think that's the best solution. What I think we should do is we decouple the voting from the appreciating assets. So we take the coin, which can vote, and you separate the two. But honestly, this is already being done, because when you borrow anything on a lending platform, you're borrowing the right to vote with it without borrowing the economical incentive. So you no longer care whether the token goes up or down, or the coin goes up or down, because you're going to return it anyways. But so you have no stake in it, but you're still voting with it. And on the other side, the lender has lost the ability to influence the protocol, the DAO, but has given up the economic incentive. So it already exists, was what I'm saying, and it needs to be solved in a different way. And as I was also mentioned with the exchanges, the custodial ownership also separates those two in the same way. Another way to do it is a logarithmic voting power, where you don't have whales making as much of a dent, but you could game that by spreading across multiple addresses. So I'm getting to meritocracy. What's merit? Basically, everything in the real world is merit. You guys are all participating in merit. If you guilds were mentioned earlier. This is a guild in World of Warcraft, and those ran on merit, right? If you played the game and you did well and you were great at leading raids or something, you could rise in the ranks, and eventually you'd be officer. You'd be in charge of leading raids and whatnot. And unless, so most of the time this worked, unless maybe the guild leader overnight promoted his girlfriend or her boyfriend to an officer, and you're like, what happened? But in a traditional company, it's also all merit-based, right? If you do well, you rise in the ranks, you get promoted. If you don't do well, you might get fired. So this is really something that works, and it's evolved in humanity over time, and that's why we want to bring it on-chain. The issue is, on-chain, everything's deterministic, and therefore the product needs to be built with merit in mind. You need to keep in mind what you're building and how you want to tie merit into that. What I'm saying is, how do we reward, or what do we reward for within the DAO, and how do we guide the project towards rewarding those actions? And that's, we also mentioned that earlier, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It really needs to be developed individually, but also in a way that it can interact between various DAOs. So the goals for meritocracy on-chain is overcompensating the valuable contributors, the top guys or girls that are providing the most value to the DAO, to the organization. Also, we want to have it be a long-term incentive alignment, so that voters or decision makers have an incentive to stick with it and see that their decisions actually basically see through the impact of their decisions. Of course, open and transparent. It's on-chain after all. And with the bandwagon voting, we want to make voting edgeless. So this is the financial theory about how data is valuable or information is valuable, and if you have information, you have an edge. Well, if you know how the previous decision maker voted, and you have a linear reward, then you have an edge on the person who voted before you, and that's what I'm talking about. So getting rid of that possibility that you can gain the same reward despite voting after somebody else for an incentivized voting mechanism. Great, yeah. So I was talking about coins earlier, and the way that we're implementing Merit is through a non-transferable token. So we're no longer using a coin. Other ways that have been brought up was proof of humanity. So you could so that whales could no longer split across different addresses. You need, for example, tying your address to your Twitter account or something else that proves that you're a real person. And quadratic voting has, of course, gotten a lot of discussion over the past few years. So the non-transferable token I'm talking about, it's used to track merit on a address basis. So we can do this on Solana because we can just put it as a property in individual accounts, and every address has an account that just tracks this number. It's non-transferable, but it can go up and it can go down based on how the protocol decides. And I also mentioned earlier that merit, it needs to be decided how merit is rewarded, and that's going to change over time. So that's going to be decided upon by previous merit. So it's a self-perpetuating thing, and we see this. Actually, I get into this a bit later, but we see this as very much as a fractional system where we need to decentralize slowly and over time. And it's kind of like a kid growing up. So you have a child in there, you need to take care of them, you need to show them the way things work, and they become more and more autonomous, and then eventually they're 18 or, I don't know, 28, and you set them out into the world, and then you just hope that everything works out, and you just let the DAO, and same here with the DAO, you just, eventually it's decentralized, you set it out there, and it follows some sort of Brownian motion, and hopefully ends up in the right place. That's all. Yeah. And of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So with Merit, is going to be different on different platforms. If it's a World of Warcraft guild or an investment platform, there's going to be different things that grant you merit. So the things about reputation are you can't buy it, and it's a way of showing skin in the game. And we also mentioned earlier the various task forces you can set up, and with reputation, it's no longer a one coin for each protocol kind of thing. Instead, you can have different sections have different types of reputation, because reputation is in the end not tradable and not, well, you can't swap it for money. It is valuable because everything is valuable in some way or another, but you can't swap it anymore, and therefore you can set up different versions of reputation within the same DAO, within the same protocol, without it getting in the way of that one token that you have set up. And the way that we are using reputation is on the futarchy model that an economist, I forgot his name, came up with I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, where you put votes on a prediction market, and this solves the bandwagon voting problem I was talking about, where the price of the vote, where you stake reputation to vote, it moves along a spectrum. So in this binary voting mechanism here, if more people vote yes, it moves up towards 100, and the no vote moves down to 0. And it changes based on how people vote. And then in the end, it might end up like this, and then everybody who voted yes, no matter at what price they got in, they receive 100 rep back in this simple model. And here you can also, well, some of the difficulties that you can see here is if the vote ends, let's say in 7 days or in 1 day, you're going to be voting differently, because if it ends in 1 day and you see this right here, you'll be like, okay, I should still vote yes because this won't be flipped most likely. This vote starts acting like an option, and you have an inherent theta. But you can make this vote more liquid and more true to its true value and more efficiently priced by allowing people to sell their vote ahead of time, before the vote ends, and basically take profits if they expect the vote to not swing further in that direction. This makes the voting much more, well, it ties in the whole efficient market ideas with voting, and makes, well, yeah, your voting, your incentive for voting and your incentive for gains in terms of reputation will be aligned under this model. But as you probably realize, this will require a lot of transactions, which is why we're doing it on Solana, because everybody's going to be going in, out, maybe 20 times a vote, who knows? Yeah, and yeah. Another factor of our model is that you slash the reputation of a bad actor. So somebody who's amassed a lot of reputation, because if they're an outlier, that's bad for the overall protocol, for the overall DAO. So the rest of the DAO can choose this guy, Justin Sun. We want to slash his voting power because it's a bit too much. He's turned into a Julius Caesar, and we want to bring him back down a notch. Which can be done because reputation isn't money, right? It's not a share in the model. Now, what I think is interesting is that this reputation system could be used to govern many DAOs, because some people are part. This will be a bigger problem as DAOs become more established. Maybe somebody's part of 20 different DAOs and they're not able to contribute to all of them to the same level as somebody who's only part of one DAO. So we would need an overarching mechanism to track how much people are contributing to all the DAOs they're part of. Because who's to say that somebody who's participating in 1 vote a week in 30 different DAOs rather than someone versus someone who's participating in 5 votes in just 1 DAO per week? Who's doing more? And if we're only tracking individual DAOs, then we're not getting the full picture. And a reputation system like this, built into every DAO, could be used to track participation in all of them. Because reputation would be used as a symbol of trust and commitment. Great, I don't really want to talk too much about what we did in the summer hackathon, because I don't have much time left, but the way we used reputation here was we envisaged an investment DAO where there's GPs and LPs. LPs over here on the left providing liquidity, and GPs making the decisions, being the managers, choosing which protocols to invest into, and then being rewarded with reputation if they did well and if the project succeeded or was a good investment. That was the idea. But of course, as maybe some of you who work at VCs know, it's quite difficult to make a decision. It's not as simple as yes, no, and there's a lot more nuance to it. So this wouldn't be the perfect model for this, but this is what we worked through in the summer hackathon. Yeah. Now what we're trying now is to make Hero as a platform for early stage project collaboration, where we instead track the commitment of individual users in a platform where early stage projects can be listed and rise up will be decided by a filtering incentivization scheme, and then devs or designers or something can work with the projects. We provide some sort of contracts as a service for them to agree on a superfluid money exchange, basically. And then how much they committed would be tracked and within their reputation account. And they could then take that to the next project that they might want to help later on. And it would be an overarching theme for participating in multiple projects over time. Yeah, I'm out of time, but this is what I was saying earlier. It can bridge. Oh, yeah, I guess I had this twice. You can bridge reputation all across all of Solana and have different DAOs that you're participating in and reputation across all of those as a symbol of trust. Thank you very much.